All right, welcome to Building the Boat as we cross the ocean. We have multiple hosts and presenters today. I'm Carrie Lobman. This is Tomas Pernecky, Sue Davies, Gwen Lowenheim, Jorge Burciaga Montoya, and Tugce Arda Tuncdemir. She's going to correct me later. And today is November 5th, 2021, and this session is D6. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Tomas.
Okay, well, Kira, hello and welcome everyone. It is lovely to see all of you joining us today. So as indicated by the type of this session, this is intended as a dialogue, and our intention is to invite everyone here today and join us in building this imaginary boat and have an hour of sharing ideas and experiences about how we may wish to collectively transform learning and how we can be playful about constructing and deconstructing educational practices. The fact that you are here means that there's something in the proposal that has resonated with you and drew you to this collaborative exchange. So again, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. And I will hand it over to Carrie, who will say a few words about how we are going to proceed today.
So let me just share briefly, first of all, thank you for coming. Let me share briefly kind of the origins of this session. For about the last, I think, 9 months, we have a grouping of people, most of whom work in higher education and tertiary education from multiple places in the world, have been meeting every few months. And the purpose of our meetings really grew out of Gwen and I have invited people. We're both on the faculty of the Eastside Institute, which is an independent research and training center and a hub of a new form of activism, performance activism, and also new ideas around teaching and learning. We invited people to come to see what we could create together. There was so much happening in higher ed since the beginning of the pandemic. In the United States and many places in the world, also universities trying to deal with and move forward around racial reckoning and really taking a look at the failures to address so many of the inequities going on. And we were people who specifically thought that what was needed to address those things was creativity and play and performance. That those were not sort of side topics, that those two things needed to come together. A look at how are we going to go forward together and in teaching and learning in higher education, and what did play, performance, and creativity have to offer that. So we put out a call to people to come together, many of whom had been to a webinar series that I run at the Institute called Play Development and Social Justice. And during these past 9 months, anywhere from like 10 to 25 or 30 people have gathered on a semi-regular basis. And we've had, we think, some pretty interesting conversations that have both in their form and their content challenged and create ideas about learning and created some new ways to go forward. So when we saw the call for proposals, we wanted to bring that conversation here and broaden it and invite more people to participate. So in the course of that 9 months, we've done many different things. Some of them have been talking about what we do, but we've just begun creating some working groups. So people are working on new ways to do assessment that break with the standard models and bring play and creativity to that. People are working on new syllabi, new curriculum, ideas about teaching, and as this is an example of, people are working on presenting at conferences and maybe perhaps writing together or supporting each other's writing. So that's a little bit about who we are and what what we wanted to bring to all of you, as is our fashion in our conversations. That is the beginning of where we are. Where we go will be created by all of us. So the conversation is emergent. It isn't, we don't have a goal in mind, either here or in the ones that we've been doing ourselves. So I am turning it over to Jorge and Sue. Unmute, Sue.
All right. So we're going to take a few moments and talk about what we love about our work or something that we do in our lives. And so I like making soup. I like to cook. And with my students, I like to throw some stuff in the pot and then have them throw some stuff in the pot and then mix it up a bit and see what we create together. So that's what I love about teaching. So Jorge, what do you love? And then we'll open it up to everyone else.
Yeah, well, for starting this dialogue with our presenters and the people who are joining us, I like a lot to build the class with my students. That's one of the things that I enjoy, that I like. So I don't know, what's for you? What do you like about your work? I don't know, Ilana, can you share with us what you like? You're on mute.
Thank you. So what I like, oh my goodness, I like a lot of things. I think that in this immediate, what comes to mind, I like conversation very much. I think when I'm engaged with another person or a small number of people, in a conversation that is very much equal and flowing, it is like a good meal. It is, to me, like having a rich, like cooking a very nice, satisfying meal. So yeah, that's immediately what comes to mind.
Lovely. Invite somebody else to share.
Let's see, Gwen.
Very similar to what you said, Ilana. I love that something always emerges, that I never know what's going to happen, and that I come away with a different understanding of what I'm doing with my students each time. So that I love. Yeah. And sometimes I call it lost in conversation. And I'll throw the ball to Jeffrey.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My word is Galumph. It's a word that with kids we've made and come up with. And Galumph has to be some sort of play or just engaging somehow, perhaps bringing a smile or some sort of joy in our interaction. So many times with the younger children, as I work PK through 12, it's actually play of many sorts, but even with a play of words or like that. So like one of the things I would love to do in different times, but I know even in this precious world we have online now, I want to play I Spy all the time. So you'll notice in my background, I have my Walter Mitty airplane. That was a gift from some of my fellow teachers, just when we were online some of the ways. So Galumph, however you might want to galumph along with people. And can I call upon, I don't know how to say your name, but Ramshwar?
Yes, Rameshwar Upadhyay from Delhi. Can you hear me? My voice is audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. I think that I would like to, first of all, to connect my students and at any time, and because it's a very critical time for my students and they are very scared so many ways, so that I want to connect to them and feel them, they feel relaxed first of all, and then we can talk about anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. And pass it to someone else if you can see people's names.
Okay. Thomas.
Thank you, Ramshwar. What do I like about teaching and being in the classroom? I think I like the unexpected. I like the possibilities for the students and me together to become. And I suppose every semester, you never know who is in the classroom. And you never know what's going to emerge collectively. And I really enjoy seeing the students engaging, having fun, being playful. And I like being able to facilitate more creative and fun experiences for students so they can enjoy it. And seeing their joy brings me a lot of joy. Upma, what do you like?
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yes.
Did I? Okay, thank you. So for me, colors play a really important role in my life. I mean, I feel rejuvenated when I am using colors. And somehow I feel that connects also to kids. So I try using colors in my class, and doing role plays with them really gives me good feelings. Yeah. And so I would like to tag
Raise your hand if you haven't spoken yet.
Lois.
Louisa.
Lois, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I love it. What I love about it is everything everybody said. And I will add, experiencing and being part of people transforming from being in their heads to actually truly listening to others. I really, really love that. I will call on Luisa.
Thank you, Lois. I've just come out of about 5 weeks of COVID. It's been retreat with mostly me with myself. But as I came out back into the little community that I live in, what recently delighted me was my deciding to make pumpkin pie, throwing little sugar plum pumpkins in with the seeds and all, and how terrible the pie turned out, but how that created a lot of laughter and playfulness and giggling. And what that's, my penchant is to invite chaos in that way. I love that out of that came no judgment, but just playfulness and a lot of eating of pie with pulverized sunflower pumpkins, which I do not recommend, with the hulls. Thank
That's
you.
lovely.
Has everybody spoken?
Minu, who just came here.
Oh, Nina.
And Tugce.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Minu, I said your name first, but Tugce, I'd love to say you too. So. Minu, are you there? Okay, how about you, Tugce?
Okay, I can start. I'm right now working with in-service preschool infant toddler teachers and who don't have degrees. And I love my job, the work, because I like them to be aware of the power of play, because most of them don't think the play is important, even if in the preschool classrooms. So that's as I want to say that.
Thank you.
And just throwing the ball to Minu if.
Minu, can you hear us or unmute?
Or right in the chat.
Yeah, we're asking what
yeah.
people love about teaching. So if you have a chance, join us in that. And I think we're passing the ball to you, Gwen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. It's really nice to be kind of like in this, swimming in this place of what you all love and like to do. Now we want to share with you through a creative kind of choral reading, the full proposal that we wrote for this conversation, this dialogue, because it meant a lot to us to write it together. The five of us, as Carrie mentioned earlier, who've been coming together to create this emergent kind of conversation among people in higher ed around play, social justice, and development. And so when we created this together, it was something we're very interested in continuing to create and that you can get grounded in. So we want to do a choral reading of the proposal that we wrote. And so I'm going to share that with you on the screen.
And Gwen, can I just add something? Gwen, can I just add a quick thing?
Oh, yes, I said yes. Could you hear
Oh,
me?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. This is what we're using this as is a continuation of the conversation we've already begun and as an offer into the conversation going forward. So I probably meant to say that in my very big introduction. This is our first sort of conversational offer out to all of you. And so as we read it, be inspired and we'll keep talking.
Yeah, ma'am, may I?
Yes, Minu, do you have a thing you love about teaching?
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you so much. First of all, you want to hear me and you give me opportunity to describe my passion about teaching. So, ma'am, I just on my camera. Ma'am, I love about teaching that there's many opportunity to learn different new things in every day. And ma'am, I think there's so much opportunity to learn from kids, how they react, how they speak, how they learn in every different kind of situations. And ma'am, it's a process of learning for me, everyday new things. Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much to all.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so a little performance direction around how we might do this and any other way that you want to add is that we'll start reading this piece out loud, and I will do the sort of half of the first paragraph, and then maybe somebody from our group, the presenters, will jump in. And at any point, we can emphasize something that strikes us. We could say it over again. We could repeat what somebody said before. Even if you're not the reader, you can repeat. So let's sort of we'll create this as we go. We want to play with this. We want to get our hands in it like clay and build conversation off of it. Okay, anybody want to add anything else about any?
No, just
Okay.
I really stress you can jump in, you can repeat. Oh, Louisa, yes.
Yeah. Are we all taking turns reading or just the 5 of you?
Anybody can jump in and read.
Okay. Okay, cool.
I was just saying that one of us could go after me, and so we'll start to play and sort of set the stage in some way.
Okay.
And
Okay.
any of us can come in at any time and keep playing.
Cool.
So the name of the workshop is Building the Boat as We Cross the Ocean, an improvisational conversation for and on transforming learning. Okay. The pandemic, lockdown, and the movements for social justice and equality have brought into the age-old practices of have run to question the age-old practices of how we organize education. For many of us, this is not a new challenge. Long before 2020, long before 2020, we saw
How
that
long, Gwen? Long?
it was so long. I mean, when I was a teenager, so that was in the 60s, I started to see it. So, but I would say way longer before that. We saw that traditional ways of teaching and learning focused on the exchange of existing knowledge, exchange of knowledge, and the positioning of the teacher as the expert. We're not working for teachers and students from preschool through tertiary education. I never knew what that word was until this thing got written.
These modernist practices. Oh.
These modernist practices were ineffective at best, and perpetuated a hierarchical, exclusionary, and normative classroom culture.
Hierarchical, exclusionary, and normative.
Whoa. Terrible.
In light of this, many educators have been trying to create more inclusive, innovative, and co-created learning environments.
Yay.
Within
Create more
classrooms,
inclusive, innovative, and co-creative learning environment.
Within classrooms.
schools,
communities, and the larger world. The Educating as Relating Conference, this, with its mission of preparing for a global future in which inclusion, innovation, and improvisation are essential for a world in harmony, is a powerful example of how these movements are growing.
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 Growing. And yet, transforming learning methodologies is not an easy task.
No.
Given that the institutions that are charged with educating people are centuries
old. Market, assessment, and politically driven, and perhaps most insidious, siloed and unable to make use of innovations emerging in other sectors.
So I have an offer here. It's me, Gwen, speaking. The next sentence is, so how do we get out of the fly bottle? How do we get out of this? We have to embrace that we, educators, in particular species as a whole, do not know how to make the changes. So at this moment, I'm going to stop sharing, and I want us to perform. How do we get out of this? How do we get out of this fly bottle? And if you want, you can grab something that's near you. Grab something that you might want to, maybe will help you play, like this strange thing. And let's just perform, let's create a collage of how do we get out of this fly bottle, okay? All right, so in the fly bottle, yeah, if you can come off video, do it so we can see. Come on video, how do you get out? Out. Oh. Ow.
I knew vitamin water was important for something.
Okay. Okay, stay getting out of the fly bottle as we continue our reading. Oh, Rameshwar, how do you get at, show us your fly bottle. How are you in it? How are you stuck in there? Oh, unmute yourself.
I feel very energetic and thinking about the bottle and how it is flying, and your energy is so impressive that you are doing the things very dramatically. I like it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So keep helping us do this, okay? Okay, so I'm going to go back to our copy. And so how do we get out of the fly bottle? We have to embrace that we, educators in particular, and the species, you know how far back the species goes, do not know how to make these changes. Somebody else?
To go forward, we have to build and rebuild the boat while we are sailing on it. As educators, we need to create ways to work with each other and our students that are in themselves a new way of learning, where the collaboration is not just a critique of the old, but is itself a new practice.
Not just a critique.
No, no, no.
A new practice. Not easy to build a boat when you're sailing.
Yeah.
Not
No,
easy
it's
to build a
risky.
boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we
You
need
want
each
to say
other.
more, Louisa? I know
No,
we're reading, but I just was intrigued by that offer.
Mm.
Well, actually, I was building that statement on having sailed on boats a lot as a young person on the ocean during gales.
Mhm.
You wouldn't
storms.
want to be building your boat in that moment.
Right. I mean, putting the sails, taking the sails down and rigging up things that got broken. But building, I mean, that's a big stretch for me. It's a good
Mm.
stretch. Thank you.
Well, because if you
Oh, you
just
went from
muted
being
yourself.
unmuted to muting, Sue.
well, that was creative, don't you think?
Yes.
If you're building the boat while you're in the water, a lot of things could happen, right? You could get a hole in the boat. You could go over topside. You could get faster and speed along. You could, a whole lot of things can happen while you're doing that.
Mm. Mhm.
So are we building the boat in the water or we are outside water?
While sailing, I think. Didn't you say while sailing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I think about it as a metaphor for what we're creating, I think it's a really good question. Who just asked that question? I don't know who was that. I didn't see. I think of that similar to the statement about it not being a critique. Because if you're in education, if you're part of the world of learning, which most people are in some way, then I think it's much more, you can critique from outside, but to me that is often it's easy to do, but it doesn't particularly produce something. But if you build from where you are, from inside with the people who are doing it, I think it has a lot more power, because you can speak as an insider. Although I'm also provoked to think part of what's allowed me to build new boats, if you will, is not locating myself either inside or outside of institutions, because educational institutions have such a long and controlling history that I think it helps part of what I think this grouping has meant to people, but people could say for themselves, is the freedom to meet and talk with people who are not of their institution, right? And are not, so therefore can see some things maybe they couldn't see. So I think what you're asking is not a rhetoric. It's a very important question of where one locates oneself in building something new.
It does seem like it's both, building a new boat with each other based on our histories, based on so much that there is, building that new boat and transforming the boats that we're in simultaneously. So yeah, if you look at it, transforming our world, then it's all the boat that we're in. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, part of what, building off of what Gwen just said, we're in our institutions are in the world, our students are in the world. And so in a way, what I found really helpful about our conversations about teaching is it's located us in the world, in addition to our institutions that are in the world. It's kind of like set theory that we learned in high school or college, right?
I mean, I think for me, the education is the ocean. So some of us are in the middle of the ocean amid different storms, and I think we're trying to be developmental and creative and playful and trying to perhaps do something different. And for me, this is the building of the boats.
Yeah, stick on that. The boat also need to be the traditional boat. It's something creating new, completely different, and with very different tools that maybe we can think that in the sea are not useful, but who knows? So it's something new that is created in this big sea of education.
I love that. I was thinking that what went through my mind is how could you build a boat? And I went to interdimensionality, that dimensions could come together. And then I thought interdimensionality. And then I thought, well, play and improvisation is pretty interdimensional with set curriculum and, measurements and testing. And so those are bringing together dimensions, what you all are talking about. For me.
So really, I find that image really interesting of things existing that don't belong together, but exist together anyway. That's how I've never heard the word interdimensionality, but that's what I was picturing when you were saying it, that we live in a world where we think things have to stay within the plane that they are, but what you're opening up is this possibility that things like assessment and things coexist in a world in which play and improvisation exist. And how are they, in some ways, how are they relating to each other? What are you able to make with them?
I have a thought about that, about the interdimensionality and what Tomas said about the education being the ocean. And that made me think about, well, how could you not build the boat as you were on it, since it is changing so much? I mean, literally, you're on the ocean, and what your boat is coming across is hundreds and hundreds of miles of plastic.
Right.
The
and you
ocean
try to
has-
keep using the same boat.
Right, you can't use the same boat.
Yeah.
So it has to. And so then, in terms of the positive, hopeful thing that I heard in what Louisa said, think about how many educators are so angry and sad about the educational ocean changing in such a disgusting way, the way the real ocean is, that they're depressed. Like it's fatal, it's like fatalism or something. And so, Louisa, what you just said was very hopeful to me.
And we can take it further and think of the students as the fish.
Or the octopus.
Feeding on this plastic.
You think they're the octopus, Louisa?
The octopus teacher, if you haven't seen that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, now we're in the water, learning a different way from the fish, as you say, Thomas, the students, who are also our teachers. Cool. Exciting.
I was just going to jump on to say that wondering, like, when you're on a boat and you want to build it at the same time, but a boat very rarely ever sits still, right? Within a short amount of time, something's happening. You have to be navigating one way or the other. And so you have to navigate whatever's coming at you. And I think, wow, you talk about the plastic, but you talk about so many of the educational pieces hitting us in the face, those waves and pieces. And so you're building the boat, you're adjusting the boat to whatever that navigation needs are.
I guess I want to just circle back to a moment about Thomas talking about the students as the fish, and thinking, I had this image pop up in my mind stream of looking back in the back of a boat I was on one time, and there was a whale that was right under the boat. I think they were called, what are their guide whales? There's some name for that kind of whale. But just, again, putting the dimensions together of the boat and the building of the boat, getting where we want to go in the ocean and who's in it. Yeah.
I think what I was thinking off of what you're both saying is, you have a lot of options when things are coming at you, right? One option is to become very defensive and try to ward things off. And I don't do martial arts, but I have this image that there are other ways of responding that incorporate, right? That in some way don't try to defend, but I don't know, respond in some completely other way that isn't about trying to keep things the way they are. Because that, I think, is one response to when things are coming at you, is a conservative natural pull to go back to the way things were. And I think that rhetoric is all over education right now, right? How do we go back? And then other people saying we can't go back. But in my experience, in my 20-something years of it, it's always been a part. There's always, every time something happens in education, certainly here in the United States, that people don't like, which is almost everything that happens in education, they turn what happened before into a positive. There's a pull to do that. And instead of like, what do we do? Instead of a forward looking. And I think there's so much in what we're all saying and leadership that can be provided around what do we want to create? It's a very different question than what have we lost? And that's part of what I'm hearing in these conversations.
I really like the idea of becoming an octopus, introduced by Louisa. And I think maybe part of the solution is to say, well, look, little fish, look at the movement of the octopus, how free she is and how differently she moves. And I think it's about having the conversations and creating new opportunities to become slightly different species with more limbs.
You know, we're part of what we're doing is coming up with what we want to name our group. So becoming an octopus might be
in the mix now.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say too that Tugce, I think that we are kind of responding to the question you were going to ask us. Do you want to, you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of coming at us. Did you want to say something about that? And
yeah, we actually just also thinking about playing or doing a yes and practice. It's normally using an improvisation and giving and receiving offers. It just encourage people to everybody accept the idea as it is and build upon it, right? Just we did just as a couple of times just right now, building boats and then ocean, fishes, and octopus. So right now we would like you to think about 3 words about what features might the boat we are rebuilding have. So I can just type on also the chat, just that you can think about that, starting to think about that. Just what features might the boat we are rebuilding have. And then, for example, I'm going to start tell my 3 words, and then I just tell, for example, Gwen, and Gwen needs to start with yes and tell 3 of her words. 3 more words can be the same. So, or whoever feels ready to jump in or tell us the 3 words about with yes and, you can do. So the question is that, again, what features might the boat we are rebuilding have?
I put the question in the chat.
We also have that people have been offering some features. So I think we have some at hand. Yeah.
Oh, I can start right now, just the first. My words are respect, awarenesses, and thinkable moments.
Thinkable moments. Yes, and our boat should have a big kitchen. That's one word, big kitchen. Creativity and challenge of assumptions. I cheated. And the ability to cheat.
Yes.
Yes, and
Yes. Can I go?
yes,
Who is
and
speaking?
Puma can go next.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I think empathy, love, and collaboration could be added to our boat.
Yes, and I think
And
it should have the ability to camouflage. It should have multiple eco engines, so it can move in different directions, not just forwards or backwards. And it should have the capacity to connect and attach itself to other boats. So it can be on an island.
Yes, and it also could have like curiosity, not just from the students, but from the professors. Movement, not being static, it's moving around, and inclusion for ideas, for people, for new projects.
Yes, and music.
Yes.
And color.
absolutely.
What did you say?
Music and color.
Color.
I think
Yes, and no, you can
I
go.
think Rameshwar is trying to speak.
okay. I think there should be some signals of doing something better. There is some sign of light and some crackers maybe there during some
Can you say that word
emergency.
again? Somewhat there? What maybe there? Sounded like carcass.
Crackers means some emergency. We can
Crisis.
show it our problem and to the other boats also, so that they can come to save us.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, and wings to fly.
Yes, and our boat needs to have safety and be trustworthy and sturdy.
Are you still trying to speak? Amita, are you there? Or Deepika?
Nope.
Or Minu? You have 3 words? Everybody remind you can also write in the chat.
And you can jump in as we continue the conversation and add 3 words at any point.
Carrie, I think some people have just joined, so they might not be knowing what we are doing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should move on.
Yeah, and then we can always, yep. I'll put the. Yeah, we take the rest of the time to explain how we got to building a boat.
Yeah.
So I think we want to keep the conversation going from here. What with all that we now have. Crow's nest. Oh, a crow's nest. Yes. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Say it out loud, Jeffrey, for people who might not see it. Oh, you're muted. Okay, I'll read it. Crow's nest to view around and ahead, deck with space to be, breathe, collaborate, rudder to allow for guidance and direction. And Carrie, you want to read what you wrote?
I added our boat should not be constrained by political national borders and should travel everywhere.
I had that sense when Tomas was describing its malleability. So our boat would not know how it will have a navigation thing for coming upon other bodies in the ocean that we don't know what they are, how to interact with them. But we have that built in, so maybe it's like something that could like stick out and suck a connection with another, another boat, and take a moment to figure out how we're gonna play. Like maybe a little bit like a octopus.
Yeah. Other thoughts? They don't have to be boat related at this point. We can just keep building the conversation.
Also, what is it like? What is it like to have this conversation? Just how is this, and what is, yeah. Oh, bye, Ramasha. Nice to meet you. It's
Sleep
11:30 at night. Have a good night.
Our boat will be able to get rid of time zones, and it'll always be the right time for everybody.
It's going to be an interdimensional boat. So maybe I will
What's
just
it
ask
like
questions about people's experiences. Can you reflect maybe on your own experience with education, and what has failed you or what has worked for you, how you would do things differently?
Could you repeat the question again, please, for me?
The question is, perhaps reflect on your own experiences, and share what maybe were some of the failures you experienced as a student or a teacher, and if there are ways in which you would do things differently, perhaps more playfully, or in light of this new boat, is there a possibility to reimagine how we could sail differently with the students?
Your words actually bring tears up for me, but I don't know what the content of that is, but it's just something deep in me. It reminds me of someone saying recently that the era of gurus and teachers is over. They're talking about
Can you say it again?
Someone recently said to me, the era of gurus and spiritual teachers is over. And that's, with all the abuse that's come up around that or come apparent. But I don't feel that about what we're talking about at all. But somehow when you said what you said, Tomas, that went, came up. How not to do harm, how not to abuse the power, position of power of a teacher. So put that in the positive. How to be humble and supple and responsive, respectful, which I'm sure all of you are. Well, baby, you just raise your left shoulder, Carrie.
No, I think there's something in what you're saying about endings. I think part of why you build the boat, anyway, there's so much of what you're saying that resonates with me, but the thing that I was thinking about is that to me, one of the things to work with all the time is to challenge the authority of being a teacher, right? That being a teacher means I have the authority. And it does mean that, because society has given me that power, right? That authority. But if that's not the kind of teacher I want to be, you can't just get rid of that. You have to continuously create something else with your students, because you have a responsibility, you have expertise, all sorts of things, but actually you have to continuously find ways to help them, I think, engage with the authority of being a teacher, because it actually lets them off the hook too, that you're the authority. It makes things easier for them too. So if you want to do something else, and I found this when I was a preschool teacher, where the authority was so obvious that of course I would have the authority. They would all run amok if I didn't. So if I wanted to do something else, I had to really go outside the box, because it wasn't, you could, if you flipped it and said, I don't have the authority, invariably we came back around to my having to be authoritarian, because things would happen that were dangerous or just hurtful to each other. So I had to really, that's when I learned to embrace play, because in play I could play around with the societal authority without just pretending I could erase it, which I think a lot of people who want to do good things in education pretend you can erase that authority.
That's beautiful.
I think it's also, for me, what I try in the classroom is to create the environment where we're co-creating the classroom. And it goes hand in hand, I think, with what Carrie just said, because you have to acknowledge in the co-creation that you do have some authority. You do have authority. You are the teacher, but at the same time, you're trying to create an environment where everybody is involved in the creation of learning, in the creation of advancing what the classroom environment. And students, I mean, I teach graduate and continuing ed, so older students. So sometimes they embrace that, and sometimes it's a little tussle because they come because they want to learn whatever it is that I'm teaching. But it helps me to be humble, using your, I think Louisa used your word was humble, helps me to be humble, thinking about myself as a co-creator. And that doesn't remove who I am. It's I'm creating with what I have and they're creating with what they have, and we're doing something together.
I think part of one of the myths, and then after this, I think we should, so Sue and Jorge can kind of like take us out in terms of how we can all continue to play and create something together. But one of the myths, I think, is that we're not co-creating the classroom environment. So you can self-consciously create it, but to relate to students as anything other than environment builders, now they might not be given the tools and the possibilities, but we create environments all throughout our lives, everywhere we are, all human beings. We're not just in them. So I think it's one of the myths that sort of distorts this notion of, this authoritarianness. So you start to look at your students and change the lens, but you've got to philosophically challenge how we come to see, change the lens to we are creating this. So how can I be an ensemble supporter and builder rather than like Carrie said, get out of I think we can just get out of the authoritarian role. Now, what do you think, Sue and Jorge? What do we got for people to go forth?
Well, number one, we have loved this conversation. This has been fantastic. And so we want to continue it, and we want to invite everyone to continue to create this conversation. It doesn't need to go beyond. So Jorge, what's coming up?
Well, Gwen is gonna share some information in the chat, and we wanted to create outside of the conference also to continue. So we are inviting you to join us in this building the boat with the people who are having this kind of conversation of education in university, but in all levels. And this is an invite that we wanted to do with all of you, to join us in that conversations and see what can we grow and what can we do this building of the boat, these conversations like these that we have today.
And you can pop your email into the chat so that we can stay in touch with you. The next meeting coming up is the 19th. Gwen, is it what time? 6?
Oh, I thought I put that in, sorry. So it's 7 p.m. Eastern time, but we do work with people in different parts of the world. Tomas is from New Zealand, and so we're also have other activities that go on, like the curriculum development together kind of thing, working on assessment. People are doing some very, very interesting work around it that can meet at different times. So we're sort of like, yeah, you know, kind of like an octopus, you know, like with different, yeah.
So if you
You're
want
muted, Carrie.
if you
I
want to
think
stay in
that
touch with
image
us,
of the octopus really works for this. We have about 35 to 40 people who are on our list now, and people cannot all come to the times that we do. They can't all come to all of the times that we do. And so as a group, we're beginning to take responsibility for finding ways to stay connected, with those meetings kind of being an anchor time when we can, as many of us as possible, can come together. Sorry,
Also,
Sue, you
there's
were going to
like-
say?
oh, I was just going to remind people they can pop. We only have a moment or two
Yeah.
left. If you want, please pop your email into the chat and you will be part of the ongoing conversation.
Yep. And of course, Gwen and I both put our emails in, so you can also reach out to us. It seems like you can also reach out to Tomas's little octopus icon that is in the chat as well now.
So
Thank you.
much. I love doing this. Absolutely loved it. It's great.